licenses and have a job too.
Exactly.
So you got a lot going on. The VA, the college, and now hiring instructors and future instructors too.
Yep. So now, can we get the commercial started?
Already ahead of you.
Call Brad to get your adventure started today at Ocala Aviation, 861-7484.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. If you drive from Ocala to Orlando and you take the Florida Turnpike, you will have an option to pay for your tolls with cash or with one of those electronic SunPass things, and I'm sure all of you already know that. Did you know, though, that there are a few exits that you have no choice? You have to use that electronic pass. And Robin and I went down there like last Saturday or so, something. Yes. We went down there, and I was thinking, wow, what about the people who don't get it? You know, what about those people? My own mom, who has passed away, was 87 when she died, I think, something like that. And I remember taking her to the public library probably 10 years earlier and giving her the rudimentary information she needed to do simple things like Facebook. And I think she had America Online as her account. I can't remember. But
yeah,
little things. And she became really good at it.
She loved it.
She was really, and it really did enhance her life, especially after my dad passed away. She lived 4 years longer than my dad. And so for 4 years, she had an outlet to the family. You know, maybe the rest of us use Facebook for the whole world or whatever, you know, but in her mind, it was just a way to communicate to her children and her grandchildren and her extended family, her circle of friends. And I know so many of the ladies and guys her own age weren't in on that, and she actually probably recruited a few. Dr. Kevin O'Neill is on the phone. He's an acclaimed geriatrician and the chief medical officer at Brookdale Senior Living Solutions. He's talking to us about the new Rewiring Aging Survey and how seniors can use technology to increase social engagement. Exactly the topic, I think, that I was talking about with my mom. Good morning, Dr. O'Neill.
Good morning, Larry and Robin. Nice to be with you.
Nice to be with you. Where are you calling from?
I am calling from Sarasota, Florida, where I live.
All right.
Oh, nice.
All right. We have a few Brookdales here, don't we, Robin?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we've got a few here.
We have quite a few in Florida and a few around Ocala.
Are the smartphones becoming, in my mind, everything has become a lot easier than when computers first came out. I mean, at the one time you had to know codes. Remember that?
Yes.
I certainly remember that. And it is interesting, Larry and Robin, to see that the technology is starting to be embraced more significantly by older adults, but there's still quite a few. In fact, in this study that we did in collaboration with Stanford Center on Longevity, which is part of Stanford University Medical Center, the title of the study was Technology Use and Well-Being in Later Life. Significant number, 25%, we call virtual shut-ins, don't use any type of technology at all. And 2/3 do use cell phones, but a significant number still aren't using smartphones or FaceTime and some of the other digital devices, e-readers and so forth. So I think with more education and information, hopefully we'll see more older adults embrace it to stay socially connected.
I grew up, but when I was a teenager, I lived around the corner from a man who I never knew. I didn't know him. He was older than me, probably by 40 years or something. I really didn't know him. He recently passed away, and in the last several years, he was on Facebook. He got to know me. Of course, I don't live around the corner from him anymore, but it was amazing. And I thought, wow, how come I didn't know him back then? It was like the internet actually got me to know him and him to know me. It's just
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that it's so important, that social engagement. Studies are now showing that social engagement is a powerful predictor of longevity, quality of life, and even health outcomes. In fact, we know that social isolation is toxic. the incidence of depression, stroke, even Alzheimer's disease is increased in people who disengage from family and friends and become socially isolated. So this is where I think the technology can really make a difference, and hopefully we can help people overcome some of the obstacles that they see to adoption of the technology.
When you have an assisted living facility, is it good to have a common area with maybe 2 or 3 computers, or should every resident be encouraged to have their own?
Well, Robin, we do, in fact, in our communities have kiosks for folks that would rather use the kiosk, and actually that becomes a little bit of a social environment itself.
That's a great idea.
And talk about it. But more and more we find are, using iPads. In fact, in our communities now we have iPad mentors to teach people how to utilize the devices. Also, I think one of the important messages for vendors is to understand what happens as people get older. I mean, there may be visual challenges, so being able to use large fonts so they can read it more easily, understanding that contrast is important because contrast sensitivity diminishes as we age. Sometimes just handling a keyboard, if someone has arthritis in their hands, can be difficult. So InTouch, one of the computer systems we're using is called InTouch, which can be done by touch or voice activation. So I think making the technology easier to use and providing education and classes to help them overcome those barriers that they may exist in their mind to adoption was really important.
I love the kiosk idea. Here's why: because I could imagine if an older person was reluctant to be part of this whole thing, then gets into it and is kind of enjoying it, and all of a sudden he's hacked, or somebody takes his money out of his account, which has happened to me.
Yes.
But I mean, I can imagine somebody saying, "Oh, forget it! I'm just throwing this whole thing in the garbage. I don't want anything to do with it." So it could ruin the whole thing when there are remedies for some of those problems. So a kiosk, I think, would feel safer, I would think, because you're going out to this community thing and there's somebody else kind of overseeing it all. Am I right about that?
That's exactly. Making sure that things are encrypted properly and firewalls and safeguards are in place, and making sure we have appropriate protection against viruses, and we ensure that in our communities.
So when you do have something like this, you had mentioned about classes, and I think that's one of the most frustrating things for anybody any age, is someone to be given something and they say, here you go, and then all of a sudden they have this thing and they don't know anything about it. So it's great to walk them through how to operate it.
Absolutely, and that too creates a social environment, because then they see that there are other people who are experiencing similar challenges and how they overcame them, and I think that itself. In fact, it's been interesting to note in a lot of the geriatric literature that people may not necessarily exercise because they want to exercise, but they exercise because they want to be around other people who are doing it and have some fun.
That's true. Yep. Do you know, I think I actually was an activities director at an assisted living facility for 3 years, and I think that is now a Brookdale facility, right?
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it is now. Now, I will tell you, one of the challenges I had back then was finding like a radio station that played the big band music that the people really wanted to hear. And if I was doing that job now, it would be so easy because there are so many websites that focus on just that one genre of music. The computer can be the radio.
Absolutely, yeah. I think being able to target the type of programming to the needs and likes of that individual is so important. And one of the companies that we've worked with in our communities, it's called It's Never Too Late. IN2L. It's Never Too Late. Which is specifically targeted for folks who may have some cognitive issues, mild cognitive impairment or even early stage Alzheimer's. And what they've done is they've tailored their programming to that person. Like we had one lady who was having some agitation, aggression, and it turned out she was probably bored, but we found out she loved cars, and they actually hooked up a steering wheel to the computer so she could drive along roadways. It just kept her very happy.
Like a video game.
Yeah, and it resolved some of the agitation, and problems that she was having in terms of just being bored.
That is cool. That is cool. And what I did do back then, we had I think it was a PlayStation, and we had Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yep.
And they would sit around. It was like entertainment. They were all playing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
It was interactive.
And I actually used to have Who Wants to Be a Hundredaire, and I would give out $100 savings bonds because it only cost us $50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, the other thing too about computers is the opportunity for computer-assisted brain games, computer-assisted learning. They're fun to do, and the studies are now showing that it may actually help improve cognition, may help retard the cognitive impairments that may occur with aging or even early-stage Alzheimer's, and there may actually be some cognitive improvements. In fact, Dr. Gary Small, who heads up the UCLA Center on Aging, has done some fascinating research in which he did functional MRIs, functional brain scans on people who were doing Google searches and so forth, and actually showed multiple areas of the brain lighting up.
Really?
Because they're stimulated and activated. So I think it's not to say that it replaces the low-tech stuff like crossword puzzles and Sudoku and bridge, but it may be a nice, useful adjunct. And my feeling is if it's fun to do, people will do it.
Man, yeah, I have such a fond memory of the times I worked over there. I mean, so long ago. Can you imagine now? You could say to somebody, "Where did you grow up?" And they say, "Oh, I grew up in a small town in Ohio." And then you go to Google Earth or whatever, and you get a street view and say, "Is this the house you grew up on?" "Yes." "How'd you find my house?"
Yeah, that is.
I think that would be awesome. Or maybe they would know how. Maybe they're more ahead of it than I realized. I think this is a wonderful thing to promote. Do we want to leave the listeners with a website?
Yes, the website is brookdale.com, BROOKDALE.com, and we also have a toll-free number if people have questions or more information that they'd like to obtain on this or other aging issues, and that is 855-350-3800, and they can actually talk to a real person.
Excellent. Good stuff, Doctor. Thank you so much for being on the air with us today. I have a special place in my heart for the work that you do. Dr. Kevin O'Neill, thank you. We will take a break. Be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For today, times of clouds and sun and warm. But the shower with thunderstorm in the area, high 82 to 86.